This won't be much of a talk because my contrasting pair is ask not what I will say to you, but what you will do for yourselves. Was that a good one, Lance?
Sure.
First, I'll just say a few words about the lineage of this talk. When I first started reading Korzybski, the first thought that came to mind was, this is a lot like the Madhyamaka. The Madhyamaka is usually translated into English as the middle way teachings of the Buddha. The main document is Nagarjuna's document from the 2nd century in India, which is a Shastra, which is a commentary on the Heart Sutra of the Buddha. So that's number one. Number two, this sort of involves Jackie. When I was leaving the conference last year, I ran into Jackie in the Bardo of LaGuardia Airport. And Bardo, by the way, means in-between state. Airports are a lot like Bardos. You enter the Bardo after you die from the Tibetan point of view. But we were talking about how general semantics has become for many people an academic discipline, whereas maybe Korzybski didn't really intend it as just an academic discipline, that he was concerned with the relieving of suffering of people, it seems. And the Buddha was also concerned with that. Third, I read Lance's piece on consciousness from a recent et cetera, and I decided to write a response to that. It's not really a response, it's really like a, here's what the Buddhists think of consciousness. In fact, Buddhists don't speak of consciousness in the singular, we speak of it in the plural. The 5 sense consciousnesses, the 6th mental consciousness, the 7th, you might call it the klesha consciousness. Klesha means conflicting emotions. And the 8th is the alaya, or the storehouse consciousness. I'm not going to go into all of that right now, but you can read all about it. Here's a good book, Transcending Ego. This is by Drongo Rinpoche, Distinguishing Consciousness from Wisdom. And that's in the thing that this will make Tom happy. I did submit this to et cetera. Maybe it will appear there at some point, who knows. Fourth, both Korzybski and Buddha were concerned with sanity. Fifth, my current teacher, the Dzogchen Punlap Rinpoche, he refers to Buddhism as a science of mind, and that reminded me of Science and Sanity. And someplace in his writings, and I was unable to locate the exact spot, but maybe Korzybski scholars can help me at some point. Korzybski talks about, can you experience your world without thought? He doesn't really go into that very much, and at least in the thing that I read, but I thought that was interesting. And finally, Korzybski emphasized time binding. And in the Buddhist world, they also emphasize that. The operant word here is lineage. In Buddhism, lineage equals how the teachings are passed on from down through the centuries to ensure the accuracy of the teachings. So all those things I thought it's appropriate to talk about Buddhism here. I'm not going to even, despite what's the title of my talk? Linking language to practice in Buddhism. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the intellectual side of Buddhism. If you're interested in it, there's all sorts of libraries all over the world full of Buddhist texts. But I will say this, that one of the many things that you can find in those libraries is the science of valid cognition. This comes from Dignaga in about this, I think, 5th century, I think, India, I can't quite remember. And valid cognition, how you actually know something. And they talk about sense direct valid cognition, and then they talk about mental direct valid cognition. And the implication of the Buddhist teachings is you can have a mental valid knowing in your world that is not conceptual, because the 6th consciousness, the mental, so-called mental consciousness, has both a conceptual and a non-conceptual aspect. I'm not going to go into all this because I want to get into what you will do, not what I have to say about it. But you can ask questions about that later if you want. Now, I wondered if I can borrow a chair that we could put right here, and just like a set from a Beckett play. And what I propose to do at this point is put you to work, or sort of non-work. I'm going to give you some basic instructions in meditation. Meditation addresses the relationship between mind and thinking, or if you're a general semanticist, mind and the semantic structure of your thought. But it does it in a very simple way. And since Korzybski seemed to be very concerned with how people can work on themselves, right? He gave us all a number of techniques, right? Things you can watch for. The Buddhist approach is a little different than that, as I will explain once I give you these instructions. Usually this practice is done when you're sitting down. That's why I requested the chair. So if some of you people in the back want to find a seat, please, that would be helpful, but not essential, actually. I won't scold you if you want to keep standing up. So we'll do that, and then I'll have you sit for a few minutes. I'll give you some instructions, very basic instructions, and then you will do it for a few minutes, and then we'll stop, and then if you have questions you can ask, and then we'll do it again. I'm doing this just because I'm lazy, so I want you to do the work. But I think it's quite consistent with what Korzybski would say, I think. So here we go. Now, normally, in the monasteries, they would sit on meditation cushions, right? In Japan, they call them zapus, and in Tibet, they call them dongans. They make slightly different names. So, since we have chairs, we'll work with that. What I would like you all to do is sit up more or less straight. Not military straight. It's not like you're trying to be, like this. But the idea is that you're upright and you are awake, right? My first teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, Tibetan exile, said, you sit like a king on his throne, with a certain sense of confidence and uprightness. And by the way, Buddhist teachings are full of these like threes and fours. And one of the threes that they use is body, speech, and mind, which basically sums up what we have to work with. We have bodies, and then we have speech, which is we could understand as any exchange that we make with the world. Right? And mind equals what goes on in your mind. And these three things are related. So the body part is you're upright, you have a firm seat. Buddhism, even though Buddhism, many people would say Buddhism deals with mind, deals a lot with body. Right? You actually start with the body, and the body is considered important. So, upright. I recommend, hands here like this. If you want to be fancy about it, you can use the meditation mudra, they call it. Mudra means gesture. But the basic idea is up, eyes open, tongue goes on the roof of the mouth. That means you'll end up breathing through your nose. And the gaze is sort of maybe 6 feet in front of you, something like that. So that's the body part. And the speech part has to do with the breath. And what you do with the breath is you follow the out-breath as it goes out into the space around it. You don't necessarily follow it rigidly, but you sort of ride out on the breath. It's sometimes called mixing mind with space. And you just do the out-breath. And the in-breath takes care of itself. Once you breathe out, you'll find it. You'll breathe in. Let's do that for just a second, and then I'll give you the third I would just say, as much as you can, just go out with your breath. When you notice that you're having any thought, and remember, the thinking, you could be thinking about killing your mother, or you could be thinking about breath as another form of thinking, or you could be thinking about bringing enlightenment to the world. It's all thinking. And Buddhism sort of treats it all as the same, right? And you just do it. And you kind of don't worry about that. You just sort of follow the instructions. And things seem to happen on your own. Actually, Taloba once said, he had 6 sayings, but one of them was, let it settle itself. So I would say when you notice a thought like that, you just go thinking and bring yourself back to the breath.
So you can't describe the end goal then?
Well, since I hardly have any time yet, and since Corey's going to kick me off here in a minute, I'll just say this. Having a goal, aggression in Buddhism is defined as trying to change any situation. So we try to be non-aggressive with ourselves, first of all. Some people call this technique being kind to yourself. Huh? So you just sit, you do the technique. You let the goal take care of itself, you might say. The Buddhist teachers have done their studies on the human creature for centuries. And these techniques seem to work. Although in different lineages, you'll find slightly different techniques. But I would say here's my advice, just do what the teachers say, and do it literally.